So let's start with agenda item 4, related to the proposed draft guidelines on recognition and maintenance of equivalence of national food control systems. There is a document that is associated with this one, and this item is going to be discussed at step 3 in the Codex procedure. What does this mean? It means that it is still at the drafting level, and it's going to be basically brought forward for discussion at step 3 during the committee deliberations. So let me give you a little bit of background on this agenda item. Now, this agenda item dates back to CCFICS26, and New Zealand agreed at the time to prepare a discussion paper on the possible development of guidance on the use of systems of equivalence or comparability in whatever may facilitate the safe trade while better use of resources, and particularly the application of the risk-based inspection framework. At CCFICS22, the discussion paper was discussed, in fact, and the committee agreed to establish an electronic working group to revise the document, and this electronic working group was led by New Zealand. At CCFICS23, basically new work was endorsed and was approved by CAC 40, so CAC 40, and in fact, the work was to be led by an electronic working group chaired by New Zealand and co-chaired by the United States and by Chile. And in fact, a number of electronic and physical working group meetings were to be held to develop the draft guidelines. Now, the draft guidance was discussed in details at CCFICS24, and this discussion led to returning the document to step 2 for drafting and then for further consideration. And in fact, in 2021, when CCFICS25 met, so that was the last time, in fact, CCFICS met, it was a virtual meeting. There was an in-session virtual working group that was held to discuss some issues, but there wasn't the possibility to complete the review. So that's why, in fact, the decision at CCFICS25 was to return the guideline to step 2, so further drafting. Another electronic working group was reestablished. It was to be chaired by New Zealand and co-chaired by the United States and Kenya. And in fact, now we are going to be discussing the output of what this electronic working group did. Now, when we look at essentially this document, the work really intended to provide countries with guidance on the way to determine equivalence in part or in whole of a national food control system at the system level. So this is very important. The equivalence here is not considered measure by measure, but it's really an equivalence of a system. And the idea is the equivalence of a system and this recognition will allow mainly the opportunity to facilitate the clearance of shipments that are being considered between an exporting and an importing country. And the idea is that this guidance is intended to complement already existing guidance on equivalence, because once again, CCFICS worked on equivalence for a number of years. This is not the first time that, in fact, this type of work was being considered. When it was discussed at CCFICS24, a lot of comments focused on the potential overlap that existed between Codex text on equivalence and mostly also on the issues of the burden on the importing country role, essentially in clearing the shipments, and how we will be considering equivalence in facilitating trade in the context of import and export. And because CCFICS25 was held virtually, there were, of course, time limitations that did not allow, in fact, to adequately review the entire document due to a number of outstanding issues. So there was a need to continue to enhance the clarity and basically further input on the way the document was shaped. And during the period between CCFICS25 and CCFICS26, basically it is my view that the document has been considerably improved, and there is really a few substantive issues that really will merit more discussion. So essentially at this point, our recommendation is that this is an important document that will support the facilitation of the way equivalence will be considered between importing and exporting countries. And in fact, at this point, we would recommend that the guidelines be pushed forward in the Codex step procedure, potentially for adoption at step 5.8. So essentially in the accelerated procedure. There is a good justification to move with the accelerated procedure because there was a lot of discussion. The document was returned to step 2 at least twice. All the comments were very well considered by the electronic working group chairs and co-chairs. So we believe that after the CCFICS26 discussions, this could be ready to move for adoption. I will pause there for a few minutes first and see if essentially there are any comments on this point. So إذن هنا يعني توصيتنا هو أن يتم دعم اعتماد هذه الوثيقة وهذا العمل على الخطوة 5/8 اعتمادا أو اعتبارا كل المجهودات التي تم بذلها لأخذ بعين الاعتبار كل الآراء، وأيضا للتقدم الملموس الذي يعني تم التوصل إليه في إعداد هذه الوثيقة وهذا الدليل الإرشادي. هل هناك مواقف عربية مختلفة أو آراء مختلفة أو حتى تساؤلات فيما يخص هذا البند؟
أحسن وزني، عندك رأي في الموضوع ولا الوضع؟
غير مداخلة، غير المغرب ما يوافق على إدراج في إدراج هذا البند، هذا المقترح في المرحلة 5/8. غير هناك غير إضافة إذا كان ممكن، ما عرفش من بعد يمكن يصيفطوها على شكل CRD في عملية. يمكن هذا توفير آليات مرنة من خلال إنشاء عملية معجلة لتكافؤ عملية النظم الوطنية للرقابة على الأغذية وإعادة تقييم للحفاظ على التكافؤ. هذا نسميوه بروسيسوس اكسيليري، غير وفق المتطلبات المرحلة التالية من المسودة، وذلك طبقا لالتزامات الأعضاء بموجب اتفاقية الصحة والصحة الأكور SPS. إدماج هذه العملية المسرعة المعجلة في هذا النظام ديال التكافؤ.
العملية المسرعة الأخت سناء يعني في أي إطار؟ يعني عملية مسرعة للتوصل إلى عملية التكافؤ، يعني إلى إقرار التكافؤ، هذا يعني ما تقصدينه؟
نعم.
أوكي. يعني لك حق، يعني هذه نقطة يعني مهمة جدا أيضا، لأنه كما تعلمون التوصل إلى التكافؤ يتطلب مجهودات ووقت طويل ما بين الجهات المختصة في الدولة المستوردة والدولة المصدرة، وعادة هذا يعني يعطل الإجراءات بطريقة يعني significant، يعني بطريقة مهمة. فربما هنا يعني الاقتراح المغربي على إدراج منهج مسرع يعني التوصل إلى عملية التكافؤ سيساهم في تقليل الوقت وتقليل أيضا المجهودات وأي عراقيل ممكن أن تحصل في التبادل ما بين الدولة المستوردة والدولة المصدرة. شكرا أخت سناء.